Hey guys, let's start.
In times like these, being a citizen is a big job. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the virtues of self-rule and debate the state of our republic. Welcome to the Citizens Prerogative Podcast. This is the voice of your nerdy host, Michael Viscatelli, and we are inspired by a co-host whose passion for our republic precedes him everywhere he goes, Raymond Wong Jr.
Thank you. And I want you to know I'm completely naked in the metaverse.
This is episode number 49. We're in season 3, and we are going to be having a metaverse of a time.
I would like to clarify my last statement, okay? I am a robot in the metaverse. So technically I have no clothes. For all intensive purposes, I'm naked. But that's about the metaverse. You can be what you want to be.
Okay, I follow you now. You're talking about your avatar.
I'm glad we clarify. I'm glad. Yeah, what did you think I was talking about? That I'm just out there crazy? I mean, the metaverse is wild. I want to be very clear about that. But it's not that wild. The people that are putting the metaverse into play have been doing this internet thing for some time. So they've got lots of filters and things. So genuinely, if I had a mission to be human level naked, it just wouldn't be possible. So let's talk a little bit about that. So far, it's been a relatively safe experience out there in the metaverse. So I don't know what your interpretation of. So when I ask you, Michael, we've been talking a lot about this, and I've been in there for our efforts and such. But what do you imagine? Like just people running around? Do you imagine naked robots now because of what I've said?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. I really have a hard time imagining what the metaverse necessarily is, like from a literal perspective. I hadn't really considered about what things look like. I haven't really thought about, what the experience would be looking like. What I have thought about is maybe all the different things that'll be out there, because I haven't dived in. So, Ray, like you mentioned, you've got the headset, you've gone all the way. We're going to talk about, everything from your experience today. Thank you for already sharing some of it. And then, just going into some action items like we normally do. So Ray's going to tell us a little bit about his experience from the inside. I thank you for asking me the question so I can share a little bit about what I'm thinking about from the outside. And hopefully somewhere in between, it'll give everyone a better picture, better view to triangulate against. So that was a long-winded way to get back to answering your question. But I'm excited about all the possibilities for not just gaming and other things that might happen in there, but for experiences that can't be created but would really be beneficial for humans, which is a lot of things science has already been using them for, like psychology and things like that. If a lot of people can enter the metaverse, and I imagine it being like the holodeck, right? It's the holodeck, but it's wrapped and attached to your face today. Maybe someday it'll be like the holodeck. And I'm referring to some technology that was on Star Trek: The Next Generation and subsequent probably series. But in any case, it was an immersive world that is all program driven, right? So anything you can imagine can be programmed and you get to experience it. But they would get to enter an environment. Today with VR, we wrap it around our eyes. And then I imagine the future is all going to be all kinds of sensors we can hook up to to help make that environment seem more real to our brain. But yeah, why not learning? Why not games? Why not, people having access to their own areas, their own platforms to make their own environments that they want to experience, almost like art. I don't know.
I appreciate your insight, and actually, for not being in there, that was pretty astute for the future. Because I'll say that most people in the metaverse are wandering around and they have the same feelings. They don't know exactly what this is all about. They don't know what they're going to do there or what their purpose is. And a lot of people are soul searching or virtually soul searching to understand what this means to them, what it means to their family, what it means to interactions and such. And I think what's important is that my experience has been it is so new and there's so much unknown that you also have a lot of rumor mill, right? We're very susceptible in our society. So very quickly you could tell people were very susceptible to buzz, rumors, etc. So the experience I'm seeing is similar to social media in regards to that captivated audience, if you will. So the other part of this, what I get to is kind of who's out there, right? So I want to stress that it's kind of all over the board. What's happening is there is a huge group of business individuals, consultants, people that are being put in there from their companies to understand and explore the metaverse and see the options. So there are consultants in there, right? Then you have a large sect of parents who purchased this device for their children, and now they're using it because their children just were not interested. And the reason why is because it is not set up to the level that people would experience, right? Would expect. I think everyone, if they think about virtual reality and what the standard is, it's a movie called Ready Player One, or a book for those of you that are astute. And the Ready Player One scenario is kind of the model that they're trying to go for. Now, it's not there yet. But what you see is everyone in there trying to understand it. So what I'd say is it's full of noobs for all of you gamer terms and such. It's really a wild, wild west. And that's how we all kind of think of it, because there's really no rhyme, reason, explanation. In some ways, there's no rules except for your own self-policing of the environment and such. And I don't know if that raises any questions or even segues from what your thoughts of what this place is. It's just like being in a real city. It's just that no one can hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that segue, because that's kind of what I was thinking about. I was thinking about now the social aspects of it. There's a couple of stories you've told me, during our conversations that have piqued my curiosity about people seeking connectedness out there, especially because we're coming out of COVID and everything like that, and there's a lot of isolation going on, and it's safer. I mean, I think back to people getting excited about online chat and stuff like that, but most people would use that to connect to friends they already had. Not a lot of people necessarily made a ton of new friends through chat, unless it was like a room. And I see these VR environments as like big chat rooms, right? With avatars. And so random people are getting to interact, and maybe there's something going on that's drawing them there, or maybe it is randomness, right? For whatever purposes. And maybe new connections are being made because we've been so isolated socially. And the possibilities are really interesting, right? You spend money and you have this headset, you spend the money one time, and then there's all these worlds, environments, events, and activities and people you gain access to without necessarily even spending more money. But you can keep me honest on that.
I mean, let's going down that path. And just before we go too far down this new rabbit hole, I want to talk about the connectedness because you sparked a thought. There was a farmer. It was shocking to me, right? Because it speaks to the problems in our country and why we have this kind of disdain. But there was a farmer who had not had internet his whole life. Essentially, he only had internet within the last 2 years, and having that internet enabled him to get an Oculus, and he was able to use this Oculus, and he literally broke down crying just because he never had friends. He never had time for friends. He just has time for the field. But the Oculus allows him to go into the city, like we were talking about, Mike. So in a sense, it's not even about money sometimes. It's just about time. As a farmer, there is no time to drive the 3 or 4 hours into the city after you've done your work for the day. So this literally allowed him to expand his horizons, make connections, and essentially make friends. And I think that is the golden moment. I think of our senior citizens who could be utilizing this technology, those that are no longer mobile. And here's the bottom line that I'll drop one more egg here, why I believe it's going to be successful, is because there's not enough capacity. There's not enough dinosaur blood left in the earth to let everyone in the world travel the world. There's just not the capacity. We don't have the ships or the planes for it, nor do we have the fuel. It doesn't seem attainable, right? So there needs to be a middle ground for the human race to connect and explore and satisfy that need to go beyond their boundaries, right? That is a human need. The VR answers it. There's no way all 8 billion people can travel. It just will never work in this world. So I'll back up there from my kind of my high horse on that and say, what thoughts does that invoke?
It's amazing because I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about the United States. That's our focus. But when you talk about global challenge of that, no, there's no way. There's never any way we were going to have capacity for everyone in the world to be able to travel the way a few do enjoy it, right? Oh, wow. So here you go. Here's the better alternative from so many perspectives, right? And it's safer too. I mean, I think about The Surrogates. That was a sci-fi movie. I think it was starring Bruce Willis. I don't remember who else was in it. But the long story short of that one is everybody stayed at home and they hooked into the internet, but they would actually send a robot out as a surrogate in the real world on their behalf, which of course was safer for them because they're actually at home hooked up to the internet. Anyway, I digress. So this idea that, that's a powerful story. So, we need food, we need farmers, and a lot of the things that we put forward are ideas that might actually make more of us become farmers. And we wouldn't want to propose people from being disconnected. So I think it's really important we extend the internet to everyone. I think this is actually the kind of equalizer in that sense, being able to create that just the opportunity for that social connectedness that wouldn't otherwise happen. I just see lots of possibility. I mean, you could create a much stronger sense of unity, national unity and framework if we had some virtual spaces. We were all able to cohabitate and get to know one another, right? Fascinating. I don't know. My brain is alight with ideas.
Yeah, right. The challenge is like the workplace. I mean, that's where my brain has been, is like, what is the future? Now people can work. Individuals who were not mobile, didn't have the ability to get into an office, can now work in a storefront virtually. Individuals that would be unable to do retail work essentially now become an essential part. Customer service delivered virtually instead of, so you get back to brick and mortar without brick and mortar.
Kind of scares me too. With all things, balance is required, and I'm sure we'll make opportunities to talk about that. Today, we are not talking about how to live a well-lived life. Today, we're talking about the metaverse.
So I like get it on the metaverse, right? So okay. I mean, like, so just getting to like what's going on right there. So what's out there? Games is mostly what it is, right? There's a connectivity for gaming, and frankly, for most gamers, it's wonderful, because how often do we spend time setting up the game, getting ready, waiting for the third party, right? Waiting for the fourth party. So now you just run around a virtual world together and act like fools until the game's ready to get going, right? And you can all travel together. And that's what's being built out. A lot of the things that Facebook is spending, or Meta is losing tons of money, is investing in these platforms so you can build any game you want, right? So if you want a game that we can jump around off a cliff and see who can jump faster off a cliff, like a really simple, dumb game, it works. You can build it in the metaverse because they've made these flexible tools for you. So it is totally gaming. It is totally focused on that piece. However, Microsoft just announced that they're going to be expanding their metaverse piece into the Office. So they're going to make it part of virtual meetings and interactions. It's going to be their Office suite, how they're going to basically enhance interaction. So that the metaverse piece that exists called Alt Space is going to be expanded into the Office space if Microsoft has their way. And so far, their collaboration tools are taken over. So we'll continue to see, anyone that's doubted them thus far. So the other piece is, outside of games, there's a lot of other things like museums, art galleries, other things showing up. But you had an interesting question about universities, right? And you actually looked into that, Mike. So that's one that intrigues me as well. School, like, it's so expensive. Maybe if we did it here, it wouldn't be $80,000 a year.
It is a fascinating proposition, and it was interesting. I haven't dug into all of the article or taken the article to task, so to speak. But in any case, I did come across this headline, an idea that I think it was positioned as to why the metaverse was not ready potentially to take on university study, meaning, could university students attend class in the metaverse? Pretty simple, I think, question to put forth. And I think the very simple answer is yes. Now, the whole point of this article I was reading was to argue that it's not ready, or that there's some challenges with that being feasible. So I'm gonna give it another read, look over, do my own additional research, and I'll be coming back with some of the arguments as to why that's a bunk. Because quite frankly, if I think about, first of all, the VR headset, it's pretty isolating today, at least that experience. So you put on your VR headset and you don't see anything in the real world. You are now in the metaverse. And, if you log into your classroom, maybe they make it so you can't leave. You have to actually take your headset off or something. You can't. Or if you do leave, the professor knows about it, right? So you're either in class today in real life or not. This classroom is going to exist at a particular address in the metaverse, and people are going to be expected to show up or not. So, attendance would be automated. You could deliver lectures beyond belief. Now, none of the current university professors outside of those who study this type of stuff, computer science, etc., would even imagine a lecture hall where they can animate everything that they're talking about and bring you through things in real time. And imagine learning biology by being able to zoom into cells and interact with the parts of cells. Like, I can only imagine incredible possibilities for learning potential for the metaverse. So, because you have so much control over the environment that you experience. So, I like I said, I'll go back through the article and see why it can't be done, but I am very skeptical.
It is hard for for me to imagine why the metaverse wouldn't be successful. Just not even just the comments I made before, but just because how expensive everything is. Like, the current economy, because we are still citizens' prerogative. So our current citizen situation is that the cheap products from other nations allow us to live the lives we do today. And in the future, there may not be a cheap option if equality cascades like it should across the world. So what it means is we all will have to have less physical and maybe a little more meta. And that's a shift we've all started to make, right? How many of you have DVDs and Blu-rays anymore? I mean, are we all digital? We're already moving towards this digital meta space, right? So, I mean, give up the physical because it's wasteful.
And on that note, time for a message from our sponsor, Citizen Do Good. Politics is war simply without bloodshed, a saying paraphrased from Mao that rings true to today. The war for liberty and justice for us all is never over, and every battle counts. Our republic still holds the promise of our freedom, and it is up to us to unleash its potential. The time is now to reimagine ourselves and our systems of governance for the dawning of a new day. We are a proud sponsor of the Citizens Prerogative Podcast, a major partner in spreading the good word about civic love and the power of change for us all. At Citizen Do Good, we plan to continue having these conversations so that all citizens are encouraged to invest in themselves and their communities. Keeping that goal in mind, we need your help to stay on mission and grow this community. Help spread the word by sharing your favorite post or Citizens Prerogative podcast episode from our sponsor's Facebook page, Citizen Do Good. Feel free to use the hashtag CDG when you share. Thanks for your support.
As we get into the roaring 20s here, even before they came, I was kind of thinking what's going to be big? What's going to be so different, right? Because that's what happened last. History repeats itself. It's been 100 years. What's going to really change? And I think we're seeing it. And I worry because there's a lot of people that are resistant to the new environment, right? But if you hear about these NFTs, right? Money being made around NFTs, it's all tied into the same thing, the metaverse and this digital space where you own these digital products, et cetera, is coming. And the internet, if you think about, sit back and you say, oh, I should have known. Yeah, I should have invested in Google. I should have invested in Apple. I should have invested in all these. And again, we don't give investment advice here. But what I'm saying is those of you that had the feeling of, I should have got involved. I do believe we're at the critical junction with this new product. It is completely, it's at another level. And the collaboration between major corporations is like unlike anything we've ever seen. So it's going to be, I believe, revolutionary. I don't know who the winners will be, but what I do know is early adopters, as usual, are always going to be the winners when it comes to, the foundation of building this thing out.
No, that's right. Even from my outsider's perspective, I have to agree. This is as fundamental as the birth of the internet, and so anybody who was with it, or even the emergence of the internet, maybe not its birth. Most of us weren't there when it was born, but many of us were there when it showed up on our PCs, when it started showing up on our computers and it was really accessible. That is the same kind of point in time and the type of explosion that can happen. Like not everybody could envision all the possibilities that this technology is going to unlock. Speaking of, let's just take a little quick step back. You mentioned NFTs. I also think we talked a lot about intermittently like VR headsets, and we're saying metaverse, and we're using all this terminology and it's not for no reason. So, I just want to define the metaverse a little bit for folks and anybody feel free to school me on this. But essentially, the metaverse is the online experience that's built on top of Web 3.0. And if you haven't heard Web 3.0, that basically is trying to differentiate itself from the current internet we log on to today, https:// whatever. That's Web 2.0, and mobile came. But Web 3.0 is fundamentally different because of the blockchain technology. And we've done a few other episodes, and I'll make sure we link back to those. But we've talked about blockchain in the past. We've talked about crypto. This is another iteration. This is another spin on the possibilities that are unleashed when you build things with blockchains. So it's the metaverse because it can't just be plain old VR. It is married to this online ecosystem, this online internet. So normally today, if you just played regular plain old VR, you're probably just playing a game that's on your local PlayStation. Maybe the PlayStation Network allows you to play a game with other people on the PlayStation Network. The metaverse is the internet. It's built on the internet. And so it's interesting because that's what also makes it fundamentally different than Meta, the parent company of Facebook. That is like America Online. It's its own kind of thing, but it has a feature. It wants to help make the metaverse easier to access. Because imagine the metaverse is really maybe the Earth. And on Earth, you have streets to walk to stores. And when you walk into a store, you have a credit card, you have a wallet. There are things about how you interact in real life that are being replicated in the metaverse. And Facebook Meta is trying to be a component of that foundation. And Ray, do you want to jump in there? Because this is experiential territory now.
They're not just trying to, be in that, they want to own the whole thing. And there's a huge debate because as I understand, basic Facebook setup is not traditional Web 3.0 like we would like to see, right? It's not as open. So as I understand it, this is not a perfect space. It's like there's still, it's IOI, right? If you've seen the movie, of a Ready Player One, the corporation is involved, right? And there are individuals involved, and we're all in this huge world that's interconnected. And it gets more complex than that, because you can take these headset devices and connect them to your PC and go to worlds that are not even connected to Facebook, right? So you can go outside of those worlds using headset technology. So you're not limited. And that's a key thing, right? We should probably talk about how to explore, right? Because Facebook is not the only one with a headset. In fact, there are rumored and future headsets coming out across the board. Even Apple is rumored to be releasing one, and that's a big deal, because that's cross-platform. Bad news on the Sony front, since you brought it up, they're not joining the metaverse as it is currently. That's a big boo.
Wow.
And probably a wrong move. I think it's short-sighted on their site. But Sony fans might come after us, but please subscribe if you do. All right. And we also have, used headsets are a big thing. Okay. A lot of people purchase these Oculus headsets for the kids, and it's not really ready for the kids. In fact, because you need social skills, you need dynamic, you need a purpose to be on there. There's not enough games. So these used headsets are available in mass out there, thinking about, how to get into it. Just a heads up though, I think Oculus One is being phased out. So Facebook is pushing that one, or Meta is pushing that one out.
Their current product is Oculus 2, Quest, something like that.
Yeah, the Oculus 2, the Quest 2 is the primary, and that it's just, and even that one's struggling. There's reports that it's getting hot because it's just a lot of demand on the processor and such, and the unit. But there's more technology. I just want to clarify something. You talked about teachers and classrooms emotions. I want to point out that there are companies developing haptic gloves and bodysuits where you can fill everything. They use actual bubbles that are filled with air. And you wonder why Facebook's dumping tons of money in here. They're buying these companies, these haptic glove companies. There's companies that detect your legs using sensors, so they can get full body movement and orientation now. So all of the technology is coming that's going to make these even better and more immersive. So like you said early on in this conversation, to trick your mind into thinking you're there.
That's incredible. Imagine wearing a bodysuit, with a VR headset. You could be rolling around in grass. You could go for a swim or something, in a way. I mean, you'd have to be suspended. I guess you'd have to be suspended in midair or something. But anyway, I digress. That's incredible. All right. So a little bit of movement into calls to action there. So for people who are looking for ways to get into this thing, we mentioned that Meta has a headset, Facebook. There's some alternative headsets as well, but I think those you probably have to hook up to a PC or something like that to operate them. Ray, you were mentioning anybody could get there without a headset.
That's right. Like they are making them available on mobile phones. It's a big move. And you can also make your mobile phone a headset. If you look on the internet, there are templates you can download to create a little box that goes on your head, and then you drop your phone into it, and you can use your phone as a VR headset. So it is accessible, but some of these apps are available there, and some of these apps are being developed, right? There are apps out there that you can get to from your PC, play to earn apps actually. So you actually have the ability to earn money on some apps, and they're just not available visually on the VR, because that's huge development, right? So some companies are actually having you play the game on your PC initially, earn to play, and eventually it'll be moved to that full immersion experience. So you can get involved all over the place. And lastly, right, Michael, stick with us, subscribe with us, because as we dig in, we're always going to keep you along with our journey.
That's for sure. I think that's going to be a wrap. We have been your hosts. Thank you to Mr. Raymond Wong Jr.
Thank you, Mr. Piscatelli. This has truly been an in-person experience.
It's been something, that's for sure. For information on this and other episodes, head over to citizendogood.com and click on podcast. While you're there, hit up the Contact Us page and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from the community. Special thanks to you, our listeners. We save the best for last. You are the best. You have been for years. Thank you for your support. We know it's painful and we love you. Intro music sampled from OK Class by Ozzy Jock under Creative Commons license through freemusicarchive.org. Other music provided royalty-free through Fizzling Studios Inc.